Conventional warfare, as conducted by Israel in Gaza, doesn't appear to have the desired effect of diluting the Palestinians' sense of purpose in continuing their struggle for freedom. Even with over 21,000 dead and many more injured, displaced, fatigued, starving, homeless, and possibly facing certain death, the Palestinians continue their struggle for a free and independent Palestine nation with the courage and determination never seen before. The oppressed Palestinian people's faith in the path taken to force the Israeli apartheid government and the rest of the world to once again recognize the suffering they, as a nation, face, even to the extent of sacrificing their lives and those of their children for the freedoms they seek. Continuous oppression has forced the Palestinians to once again recognize God's gift of reasoning that prompts an armed struggle against their oppressors. Not having a conventional military that would respond to the atrocities against them, they rely on unconventional tactics that include guerrilla warfare, much like was used by the Viet Cong to fight against American aggression against them. As most populations migrate to urban locations, seeking to improve their lifestyles with access to various services, governments and service providers also find investments into urban locations most cost effective. Villages grow into towns, cities, and then metropolises. The 10 largest populated cities are Tokyo in Japan, that has 30% of its total population, Delhi, India, 2%, Shanghai, China, 2%, Sao Paulo in Brazil has 10%, Mumbai, India, 1%, Mexico City in Mexico has 16%, Beijing, China, 1%, Osaka, Japan, 16%, Cairo, Egypt, 17%, and Dhaka, Bangladesh, 11%. These cities have already experienced the effects of terror attacks. Liberate Pak-occupied Kashmir. Which government will support the calls for freedom from the POK, who have already sent out requests for support in an armed struggle against the Pakistan government that is conducting itself much like the Israelis are in Gaza and the West Bank? Learning from what is said of Iran's support to non-government military groups in the Middle East countries, it is evident that the general terrain of the countries is desert, and so the training provided is all about tactics on how best to use available resources to overcome the enemy. Also, surface combat is always biased in favor of the better armed, so shoot and scoot maneuvers are better placed. Thus the tunnels, and as urban areas are better suited for the general public, it makes sense to specialize in urban guerrilla warfare. It is worth noting that the World Bank Group predicts that the expansion of urban land consumption will outpace population growth by as much as 50%, which is expected to add 1.2 million kilometers squared of new urban built-up area to the world by 2030. The era of gentlemen dueling face-to-face is over. Liberate Israeli-occupied Palestine. Will the Arab nations unite to contain the massacre of Palestinians? When negotiations fail, then intimidation through proxy appears to be the solution. Liberate Tibet occupied by China. Will the government support the calls for freedom from the Tibetan government in exile?